Good morning, friends. Welcome to the final day of our 2022 convention. Thank you for being here. Thanks for sticking with us. Welcome to the business session. We appreciate having you here. We've got important business to go over. If your city or town has not had an opportunity to sign in out there and to get the little cards you need to hold up to vote today, please make sure that you do. We want to make sure that you're credentialed so that your community is represented in the votes that we take. We're going to start this morning with a video from the Lieutenant Governor on Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So if you'll please turn your attention
Lieutenant Governor
to the video.
Henderson. Today marks the first day of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Today also marks 45 days since my sweet cousin Mandy was cut down by her ex-husband in a senseless act of violence. So this year, Domestic Violence Awareness Month is personal to me, as I know it is for far too many others. In fact, 86% of domestic violence victims are women of all ages and backgrounds. Losing Mandy the way we did has shocked and devastated my family, and it has made me feel an even stronger sense of urgency to identify ways to help prevent this from happening to others. Governor Cox and I are partnering with leaders across Utah to identify the holes and fill the gaps in our response to domestic abuse. We'll talk about these efforts more in the coming weeks and months. I want to be clear. No two cases of domestic abuse are the same, but they all share a common element. Domestic abuse occurs when one person seeks to take away the other's agency. Whether it's physical abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, or stalking, abusers want total control. They'll justify their bad behaviors and shift blame onto others. If you don't feel safe or in control, you may be in a dangerous or harmful situation. Fortunately, there are support systems and resources around the state. You can call the 24-hour statewide hotline at 1-800-897-5465, or you can download the Safe UT app to seek confidential help. It's also up to each of us to intervene when we see others who need help. Friends, neighbors, coworkers, and bystanders all have a responsibility to spot dangerous behaviors and to safely encourage victims to seek help. Domestic violence is a serious public health concern that is entirely preventable. I am committed to finding solutions and resources for my cousin Mandy, for every other Utahn who has endured the nightmare of domestic violence.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome to the stage ULCT Director of Policy, Molly Wheeler.
Hi, as was mentioned, my name is Molly Wheeler. I'm the Policy Director. What that means for you is that I do the research and I'm the person who's always showing up in your inbox asking you for data. I'm the annoying one. It's my goal at the League to ensure that our research is both interesting and useful. I come from higher ed, where we have the privilege of really only needing our research to be interesting, and even that is pretty debatable at times. So when ULCT pursues a research project, it needs to be interesting, it needs to be useful, and our findings need to help us drive impactful policy. And as you knew before you arrived, we have a lot, and has hopefully been solidified through this conference, we have a lot of tough policy challenges and a lot of big negotiations ahead of us. So how do we position ourselves for success? W. Edward Deming said, "In God we trust, all others bring data." I'm a big believer in this quote. First, we as the League need to clearly demonstrate that we understand the policy landscape to establish our credibility, and we need data to do that. Second, good policy is driven by good data. And if we have bad data or no data at all, another saying I like is garbage in, garbage out. And I think we'd all like to avoid that outcome. And while data is necessary, I also don't believe that it is sufficient, because while we are a lot of nerds who work with data and spreadsheets, we're also a lot of nerds who work with people. And people don't just remember the data point, they remember the story. And so we need you to help us be able to do both. We need to be able to present solid, data-driven research with compelling narratives. And you help us a lot with this. This year, you've helped us research water and land use and tax policy, just to name a few. And we need you to keep helping us do that. Keep telling us your stories, keep giving us your data, because that is how we can affect better policy for the state. One particular policy we're working on right now is public safety. We know that cities and towns have struggled to both recruit and retain their public safety employees. Over the past year, ULCT has researched the scope and cause of these challenges. But this year, we had the opportunity to collaborate with the Utah Foundation to dig a little deeper into this and try to find some impactful solutions. The final report isn't quite ready yet, but we still felt it was really important to have senior analyst with Utah Foundation, Christopher Collard, come talk about what we found so far and what the plan is ahead. So with that, I will turn the time over to Christopher.
As someone who uses the data that Molly collects, I also want to thank you for your participation in helping us have good data as we kind of research these important topics that affect a lot of Utah cities. So I mean, public safety right now is a topic across the nation, really. Looking here in Utah, you know, we have a very low unemployment rate. We have one of the lowest in the country. But I mean, it's low even by Utah standards. Over the past 10 years, we've had kind of below our long-term average of unemployment. But then even like in the past 6 years, we've been below that 10-year average. So like this is quite possibly one of the tightest markets we've had in Utah in the past 50 years. So I mean, this is hiring not only police officers, but almost anybody. This is a challenge that everyone in the market is facing right now. And you know, I'm an economist by background. The economist answer to like hiring more people and retaining them is just pay them more. But for cities, that's a difficult conversation for cities because they're not, you know, cities aren't businesses. They can't just, you know, maybe fund that through increasing the prices of their product. Cities have to be responsible with their citizens' funds. They have to, you know, in order to raise taxes, they have to go out and talk with their citizens, kind of go through the process of the truth in taxation process to raise property taxes. And these are difficult conversations to have because, you know, citizens are facing their own problems. You know, we're in we've seen the highest inflation for a long time, and people are feeling that. So it definitely puts cities in kind of this tight spot where they can't find enough funds to pay more for police officers. And it's also difficult at the same time to go ask citizens to contribute more to cover those services. So it's definitely a very tricky spot. But pay is definitely an important part of the equation. You know, and when the League of Cities and Towns, they did an amazing survey of police officers. They got over 2,000 responses from police officers, which for me is wonderful. You know, my good survey is only like 800 people. So this is really something that's really solid. And kind of what came back is, you know, they were asked, you know, what can your department and city do to keep you around? And the number one answer was pay me more. You know, when asked, you know, looking at those who are considering taking other jobs, going to the private sector, they're asking, well, why are you considering the private sector? The number one answer was they pay more. So I mean, pay is definitely a big part of the conversation. And in the recent, you know, past year or so, we've seen public safety officers have gotten some serious pay wages, especially here and kind of in the metropolitan area of Salt Lake County and the surrounding counties. And so one question we have is like, are these pay increases enough? And that's one thing that we haven't quite done yet. We're in the middle of reaching out again to police officers. You know, we're going to be following up on this. Have your recent pay increases, have they had an impact on your desire to stay stay working in public service as a public safety officer? So we're going to be excited to get those results in and see if these recent pay increases, what the impact they've had. Also, like so realizing that while at the same time, pay is this factor that comes up over and over again, and kind of as we ask these questions about how do we recruit, how do we retain more, we realized that again, this is a difficult position for many cities. So we're also doing a lot of research into other methods that don't quite have exactly the same impact on city budgets. What can cities do if they don't have additional funding to put towards police? Or like, how can they more efficiently offer these services? Or like, what are some other methods they could do? And one thing that came up, it wasn't exactly related to retention, but when we asked people, in this survey, when the League of Cities and Towns asked if police officers were really satisfied with their job, there was a kind of a wide diversity of range on whether police officers were satisfied or not. But then we asked them to explain why they were satisfied or unsatisfied with their position, and the most common response was actually their boss, or kind of administrative policies. And so about half, this was kind of an open response. They could say anything they wanted, and half of them mentioned either a boss, like either their boss was great, they felt supported by their chief, they really knew what was going on and supported the officers, or we also had a lot of the opposite, our chief doesn't support us, he doesn't know what's going on, or just like our administrative policies make my job a terrible place to be. So I mean, if we look at what good management, I guess, so, and this kind of relates to the wider market in general. Like Gallup has done a lot of these worker surveys where they found that people, when they quit, oftentimes they're quitting because of their boss. I mean, so looking at management, trying to help officers feel part of, like they're part of the decision-making process. Having supervisors who express interest in them, and kind of going along this way of good management is something that cities can do that potentially could have a big impact on police officers' job satisfaction without adding any particular additional cost to the cities. So that was one of the really interesting things that kind of emerged from the survey. Some other things we're looking at is there's been a number of industries here in Utah lately that we've been looking at that have kind of partnered together to try and develop a worker pipeline. And so two big examples of this is the composite industry. So you have Boeing, you have Orbital ATK, and maybe like 6 or 7 other companies, Northrop Grumman. And these companies got together and they put together a program where they offer high school students an internship. And then they also worked with high schools to kind of develop this program, this curriculum, where if the students go through this program, they complete the internship, they're not exactly guaranteed a job, but they're guaranteed an interview at each one of these 7 companies. And so far, it's worked really well for them in terms of developing this pipeline of entrants who come into the industry early. They get them in high school, and they can just hire them right into the company because they have this training, and they have the initial training and background they need to get started in these positions. So I mean, that was the first program, was really this composite industry. But because it was working so well, a number of other industries have also kind of gone this same route of trying to work with high schools to develop this early curriculum, get students involved, high school students in an internship, and then kind of direct them right into the companies that need these workers. And so the diesel engine industry here in Utah is another one that's been working really well with this kind of model. And so this isn't a model we can exactly just duplicate over for police officers. They have to be 21, right? But finding some way to engage students early, finding a way to kind of help them get the background they need, and then be there when they're ready, when they hit that age 21, where you can help them come into the business. And I've been talking with some police departments about this, and some of them have already developed something similar to that. For example, one department actually has officers teach in the local community college. And these officers, they get these students studying law enforcement, and they see the best of them, and they recommend to their department a number of these students. They say, hey, we should jump on these students, we should hire them now. And so the department hires them while they're still in school, and then refunds their tuition half of their tuition upon graduation, and the other half after their 1-year probation is over. So developing these pipelines, finding a way to recruit potential employees early is another way that police departments can kind of help this recruitment and retention problem without necessarily going for the additional funding. But anyway, so we have these are some of the findings we found. We have some more we're working on, and we'll be releasing this report next month. So stay tuned on this, and I hope to we hope that our report is helpful for your police agencies.
Perfect. Thank you, Molly, for all of your tremendous research. Thank you, Chris, for the partnership with the Utah Foundation. As you mentioned, that report is going to be available later this fall to help guide our conversation on public safety. And that is what I wanted to take a quick second to acknowledge here. At this business meeting last year, you endorsed a resolution that came from our Loveless and Lead Task Force and came through our Legislative Policy Committee that helped set the policy platform for the League around public safety. You'll be voting actually later today, about half an hour in this meeting, on another policy resolution that's come through our policy committee. So if you haven't already checked in to get your credentials, please make sure you do so out in the hall, because we'll be closing credentials later. Mayor Burton, thank you. Even with the light, I could see you hold that up. Make sure you check in to get your credentials so you can vote on that policy resolution and vote on the elections of our board and officers later in the meeting. The reason, though, I want to bring up the public safety resolution is because that resolution is now available on our website, and it guides the policy platform for how we advocate for you at the Capitol. And part of that's in the recruitment and retention space, and in a moment you'll hear about one of the ideas that's come forward that was part of that resolution last year that's being implemented now. But I want to just take a quick second to go back a few minutes, or go back a couple of years actually, when John Park walked into the League office. He had just retired from full-time city management work, but he basically said, there's still more work that I'd like to do, there's still more that I'd like to contribute to cities. And now little did I know at that time that a pandemic was on its way, and that we were going to need a huge effort on public safety, in addition to just thinking through how to modernize our trainings and our conferences. But thankfully, John Park walked into the office and said, I'd like to help. So John is going to be leaving the League. He and his wife will be serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, leaving in December. So this will be his last annual convention with us, not just as a member of the League staff, but even just within the overall League Army, with all of his time in city management. It was in large part because of John that we put together our Public Safety Task Force, our Loveless and Lead Task Force, which that subsequent legislative session resulted in more than 20 consensus bills, where public safety activists and others were able to come together in Utah and pass bills that ensured community trust in police. That was in large part because of John's vision and John's efforts. But when the pandemic struck, John was one of my first phone calls to say, what do cities need? If you were a city manager, what would you need right now from the League? And John was instrumental as we were thinking through the webcasts and the outreach and all of the information that we were trying to put together for you during that time. In addition to the expertise that John brings, he also just brings a sense of humor and kindness that we are going to miss in our office. And a lot of what we have tried to redo on our training and our engagement comes from the mind of John. So in many ways, when he walked into my office at the time, I didn't realize at that moment that he was going to be the right person at the right time for what we needed over these last couple of years. So John, just wanted to say thank you for your contributions to the league and wish you well in the mission field. So thank you, John. Perfect. Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone. And Justin Lee, our Director of Government Relations, I'll turn it over to you.
When I grow up, I want to be as charming, handsome, as capable as John, but for today I just wore a bow tie in his honor. We're going to have some quick presentations on some exciting programs, about 5 to 10 minutes each. So first we're going to hear from David Damshin from the Utah Housing Coalition, then Representative Jeff Stanquist with the Utah Outdoor Adventure Commission, and Daryl Valentine with UDOT. So David, turn it over to you.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay? All right. My name is David Damshin. I help lead our executive team at Utah Housing Corporation. Utah Housing Corporation is Utah's housing finance agency. Now, we buy and service single-family home mortgages. We provide down payment assistance to help families buy their first home in many cases. We're also the state's allocator of the federal low-income housing tax credit, so we work closely with developers and investors around the country to come into Utah and build affordable rental housing for our workforce, people that make up to 80% of area median income. We also work with developers that develop what's called permanent supportive housing. Permanent supportive housing provides safe, clean, stable housing for folks that are significantly disabled, oftentimes chronically homeless, people that have severe psychological and or substance abuse issues. And as we know, those people need a lot of support and resources. And thankful for our team at Utah Housing Corporation. I want to thank you for giving me a couple of minutes this morning. Mayor Ramsey, Mayor Silvestrini, congratulations on your coming and your going. And thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership to this organization. I want to thank everyone here this morning for your service. As a recovering elected official, I know how meaningful it is to do what you do. I know how much you all care about the people that you serve, and there's no higher calling, in my view, than public service on the magnitude, the order of magnitude that you all live and work, and I just thank you. I mentioned that we help low and moderate income families buy their first home. Like it or not, law enforcement officers, correctional officers, many of them fall within that category. The same is true of teachers, as you're likely well aware. There we go. So I also want to thank Chris and the Utah Foundation for their work highlighting these issues. This focus on how do we recruit and retain law enforcement officers, especially at a time like this when being on the front line these past couple of years has been especially challenging for reasons we all well understand. Our economy is not helping any. As you know, home prices are rising steeply. 30-year mortgage rates have practically doubled, have outright doubled over the past year. So that's putting houses out of reach for many families that would normally be able to afford and to buy their first home. I think those of us that own our home, have owned our homes, appreciate the importance of home ownership, the impact that it has on stability of our family, the quality of our children's education, and the ability that it gives us to build wealth long term. You've probably seen those statistics that cite that for most American families, the majority of their wealth is concentrated in their home. It's not in their 401k. It's not in their pension plan. It's in their home. And so this is a critical mission. Needless to say, there's adverse impacts in this situation on your agencies. And I'm just here today to ask you to help me get the word out. We have a down payment assistance grant program. $5 million was appropriated in the 2022 general session. I know we have a couple of legislators in the room, so please don't miss an opportunity to give them a big fat hug, maybe even a sloppy kiss if you choose, and thank them for what they've done to support the mission of affordable housing and what they continue to do. As you all know, there's lots on the table. I want to tell you what a great privilege it is to work with Cameron on the Commission on Housing Affordability. He is an extraordinary leader, incredibly thoughtful, accessible, and it's just great to work with Cameron, and you're blessed to have him serving your organization. So the high points on this program, it's about recruiting and retaining. And so it is a grant, but it's not, the strings don't detach until an officer has served with a law enforcement agency in Utah for 5 years. And so there's basically a declining obligation there. So should an officer depart within 5 years, there's going to be a balance owed, if you will. The grant is counted as 1099 income. I'm big on full disclosure, so I wanted to throw out pros and cons of the program. What's the program worth? Well, it's 3.5% of the first mortgage loan amount, or $25,000, whichever is less. That's significant. That can move the needle for a lot of these folks that otherwise would not be able to buy a home. And on surveys that we've run, most of these officers have said they would not be in the market to buy a home. They would not have been successful in purchasing a home had it not been for this program. Now, Utah Housing Corporation, as I mentioned before, we provide down payment assistance of our own. It's in the form of a 30-year amortizing second mortgage. Of course, that's a little bit more burdensome than a grant, but it's important to understand that this grant program can be used in conjunction with Utah Housing Corporation down payment. And in terms of what do you use it for, it can be down payment, it can be closing costs. As you may have heard, as the market has shifted, sellers are starting to pick up closing costs. And so what we're seeing, at least most recently, officers taking advantage of this program are oftentimes buying down the interest rate. And you can appreciate why that might be first order priority with interest rates as they are hovering around 7%. Just to give you a quick snapshot of the program's results, it rolled out on July 1. This is roughly 2 months worth of results. We funded 30 grants totaling nearly $500,000, $444,000. The average grant was just shy of $15,000. Average home price, $406,000. Average household income, $71,000. We have 28 grants reserved and pending. I want to tell you, you won't be surprised. We pre-qualified some officers a month ago that have fallen out of qualification. Let's get the word out now, and let's realize that this program might not work for some of our officers now, but as the market normalizes, the opportunities will arise. You can see we've dispersed less than $500,000. We have $4.5 million to go. That money is set aside. We want to get it out the door when the opportunities arise. I left 100 flyers down at the registration desk at the credentials table. Grab a flyer on the way out. You can reach me at Utah Housing Corporation. I'm showing the web URL here. It shows a list of participating lenders. We do not originate the loans. So our home buyers go to a bank, credit union, or a mortgage bank that participates with us, that knows the programs that we offer, and those loans come to us, we buy them. We raise the capital to buy the loans, and then we hold the loans and service them. And we provide that down payment assistance and hopefully some of these grant monies along the way. And I'm happy to stick around for a few minutes if you all have questions. And thanks again for giving me a couple of minutes of your time. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to that sloppy kiss from Dave later on. I'm Representative Jeff Stenquist, and having served for 12 years on the City Council in Draper, it's great to be back among friends. I've been been to many of these league conferences, and I want to express my appreciation and acknowledgement of the good work that every one of you do on behalf of your communities and the work and service that you provide to your residents and to the state. Back in around 2018, there was a study that was conducted by the Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute to understand what some of the deficiencies were around the state. And one of the things that was identified was that we don't have, in the state of Utah, a statewide strategic plan when it comes to outdoor recreation, which is kind of surprising given that this is a mecca. I don't think there's a better state in the country for outdoor recreation than the state of Utah. And so a few years ago, Speaker Wilson came to me and he asked me if I would take this on as an assignment to help put something together when it comes to outdoor recreation. And that's a passion of mine, something that I enjoyed doing, and something that I've worked on for many years when I was at the city level on our incredible trail system that we have in Corner Canyon. So it's something that I'm familiar with and I'm passionate about. So I was excited and thrilled to get that assignment from the speaker to take this on. What I didn't understand was just how complex of an issue this is. Outdoor recreation is something that we all enjoy. It's great for our families and also for our tourism economy, but it's also something that touches so many different other hot button issues: public lands, the environment, economic development, all sorts of things that it touches. And one of the complexities as I've been working on outdoor recreation is the importance of working, especially in the state of Utah, between different levels of government: local government, state government, counties, cities, as well as the federal government and our federal partners, because so much of our land in the state of Utah is controlled by the federal government. So creating relationships and good working relationships with the Forest Service, with BLM, and even with SITLA and private landowners is very important. So a few years ago, I sponsored some legislation that creates a commission called the Outdoor Adventure Commission that is responsible for putting together this strategic plan. And now we've also, in recent years, run additional legislation that creates dedicated funding sources for outdoor recreation as well. So there's funding that's available. I know that many cities, and probably your city, has maybe applied for an outdoor recreation grant through that program, the Outdoor Infrastructure Grant Program. That program is funded out of a portion of hotel taxes. But as of the 2022 general session, we've now created a carve-out of just general sales tax money that is dedicated to outdoor recreation. And so right now we're putting together a prioritization and criteria for how that money and how those resources will be allocated. And so what I'm here to do today is to make you aware of the work that we're doing and reach out to you so that you can help me and help the state understand how we can help you with your vision for recreation in your communities. You may have a community that's looking to diversify your economy and bring in some tourism dollars. You may be a community that wants to simply create some recreation amenities for your residents and your citizens. Whatever your vision may be, I'm hoping that at the state we can put together programs that can help facilitate and be an aid, not just in financial funding sources that we can put towards certain projects, but also in expertise and guidance to cities and municipalities that may not have large staff that can work on these things. So one of the things that we're doing right now with the commission, and so I now chair that commission. We got ourselves organized last year. We are partnering with the Institute of Recreation and Tourism out of Utah State. They're our consultants. They're gathering data right now. They're pulling in information on just an inventory of assets that we have. Where are our campgrounds? Where are our boat ramps? Where are our OHV trails, our hiking trails? To put those into a comprehensive database so that at least we can start out knowing what do we have out there. We've been holding regional workshops, and maybe some of you have attended those. We put out invitations to these regional workshops according to the 7 Association of Counties regions. We've held 6 of those 7 workshops so far this fall. We have one left next Friday in Cedar City to talk about Washington, Iron County, and that southwestern part of the state. But those workshops, we're inviting stakeholders together to help us identify, are we missing information? Where are our bottlenecks? What's the vision for recreation in this area? We're going to take that data, we're going to start compiling that into a draft strategic plan. We're going to do another round of those workshops throughout the state. So if you missed the ones that we've been holding this summer and fall, we will be back in your regions next spring, hopefully with a draft plan that we can show and get feedback on, with the idea of having a final draft strategic plan by the end of next year. So about this time next year, we hope to have that final draft ready prior to the 2024 legislative session. So we're asking for input, we're asking for your participation, because we want to be able to coordinate and help with recreation. And we know, and it's been an education for me as I've been traveling around to these different communities, what I hear when I visit the Uinta Basin, or when I'm in Cache Valley, or in Emory, or even along the Wasatch Front or Park City. Some areas every area has different and unique needs and unique opportunities, unique challenges as well. But by working together, I think that we can help elevate the recreation experience for all of our residents. Really, and I want to also emphasize also, sometimes as I've visited some of these areas, and I show up and I say, hey, I'm here from the state, I'm here to help. What's your vision for recreation? And I get different answers. One of those answers might be, how do we keep all of the people from the Wasatch Front from coming and overcrowding our areas? Yeah, that's right. And I don't know, maybe I don't have good news on that, because I think the people are coming, just like all of our growth. We have to, maybe let's plan for them. Let's understand, like, what do we want it to look like? And what opportunities do we have? We have some areas that are overcrowded. So maybe we can spread that load and that visitation around the state to some other areas that maybe might welcome a little bit of visitation to those areas, and open up parts of the state that maybe are a little bit undiscovered, so that we can relieve the pressure on some of our high volume areas. But really, this goal is not about bringing in more tourists into the state of Utah from outside. Really what it's about is enhancing and preserving the recreation experience for our residents, for our children, and for future generations. That's what we want to do. We want to protect these areas, we want to preserve these areas, and be able to have our children and grandchildren enjoy the incredible recreation opportunities that we enjoy here in the state of Utah. This is an exciting effort, and I'm very thrilled to be part of it. And so I'm here today just to help spread the word, let you understand the work that we're doing, and then ask for your help and your participation. I'd love to hear from you. So thank you very much.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you today. My name is Daryl Valentine, and like Dave, I am a recovering elected official. As a 2-term county council member, one of my favorite assignments was being on the Active Transportation Committee with WFRC and the many municipalities that were on that committee, so I enjoyed that. And being with UDOT for just over 20 years now, I've enjoyed working with local municipalities on projects and working with them to improve Utah. So last year, I've been involved in a program called the Rut Program, which is our road usage charge program. And today I'm going to talk about that and let you know a little about the program. It'll be a brief overview of the program and then also about our federal grant that we're working on, our RUC overlay. So as you know, the miles in Utah are increasing significantly, and it's going up. We expect it to double, more than double by the year 2040. So there's an interesting problem we're going to have, is that with the miles driven up, the purchasing power of the fuel tax has been steadily declining for years, and will continue to do so with electric cars and alternative fuel vehicles. It's better for our air, but it's not good for our maintaining our roads and the funds that we need to maintain our roads, both our state roads and our local roads. So back in early 2003, our legislature started looking at this issue, and they decided to come up with a task force to look at mileage-based funding. That was put on the table for quite a few years, and then in 2015, they passed some legislation to do some mileage-based, or study for mileage-based revenues. They created a task force, they created an advisory council in 2018, and then in 2019, they enacted framework for our Rut program, which we began in January of 2020. The RUC program is fairly simple. It's a user fee charge program for the miles that you drive. So we gave electric vehicle owners and alternate vehicle owners the option. It's a voluntary program right now. You could join the program and pay as you go. If you drive less, you pay less. So you could either pay the flat fee, which today is $123, or you can pay the per mileage fee, which is 1.5 cents per mile. The legislation was just passed last year that will go into effect January of 2023, drops that per mile to 1 cent per mile. So there will be a little bit of incentive to join the program and to pay less as you go. Just give you a little snapshot of our fleet right now. We're just about 2.8 million vehicles in our fleet. Of those 2.8 million, roughly 97% are gas and diesel vehicles, and then 3.1% are electric or alternative fuel vehicles. However, the annual increase in registered vehicles tells a different story. The alternative vehicles, or fuel vehicles or electric vehicles, they're some of the fastest growing segments in our economy right now. They grew 21% last year. This is our enrollment right now. It shows a steady trend going up in our electric vehicles. It's interesting to note that when we started the program, we anticipated having around 800 vehicles by January of 2022. And in fact, we have more than 4,000 enrolled right now. So the program is going well, and it's still increasing. Miles driven are increasing as well in the program. You'll see some dips right there in the winter months where it goes down, but overall the miles are increasing. I want to just quickly talk about the next steps, because this is how what will affect the local cities and municipalities, is the local RUC overlay and our tolling pilot. So these are the three projects we have going on right now. Then the RUC customer service grant and a RUC 10-year plan. So the RUC overlay and tolling pilot, this was a grant that we received in 2019, and now we're just starting this program, this pilot program. In fact, we just sent out an RFP this week for a vendor. But the local RUC and overlay, I want to just talk briefly about that. We are going to look at 4 different municipalities in the state. We picked Ogden, South Jordan, Saratoga Springs, and St. George. So there'll be 4 local RUC zones, or we call them overlays, within the state representing the boundaries of those 4 cities. The concepts are fairly basic. The miles driven on all city maintained roads within those 4 city boundaries will be charged the zonal rate in addition to the Utah base rate. The rates will not vary by time of day. State maintained roads within the zones will not be charged the zonal rate, And this will be a 6-month pilot with simulated funds, so no real money will be exchanged here. It'll all be simulated prepaid wallets. What we hope to determine with this grant, we want to look at the framework for evaluating whether Utah can achieve policy objectives through road revenue redistribution formulas or through road management practices such as demand management and corridor pricing. We want to look at data accessibility and control mechanisms necessary for distributing revenue to local communities, individual cities or counties, or between states. We also want to look at the feasibility of charging a supplement to the base RUC for the use of local roads by means of a surcharge applied to miles driven on locally maintained roads. So again, this is something that will affect all the municipalities with our declining power in our fuel tax. We're looking at something that will help fund our road maintenance program for years to come, and this is one way that we will look at it. But again, it is a pilot program, but we will be starting it soon, and we're anxious to get with you, especially the 4 cities that we're going to work with, and work with them and get information out to you as far as what happened through that grant and where we're headed. So again, I'm grateful to be with you today. If you have any questions, please come and talk to me. It's an exciting time for our state, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
I'm Roger too. I'm General Counsel with the League. I'm just going to give you a quick credentials committee report prior to the voting. We've had 75 cities representing 417 votes, I believe, that have registered. That's about 60% of the population of the state. So I appreciate everybody making the registration. I want to also take 1 minute to talk about the process on the resolutions. There are 2 ways resolutions can be brought by the body if they provide a written notice with sufficient signatures. We actually don't encourage that to be the route, but no one has. But we have the process that goes through a resolutions committee, which is also known as the LPC, the Legislative Policy Committee. We'll be considering a resolution today that has gone through that process. A public hearing on the proposed resolution was held on the 12th of September. That was the time where the language was approved, it was sent out, it was discussed. That was the purpose of that hearing. That resolution was adopted by a 2/3 vote at that meeting. Today it is the opportunity for the business of the entire convention to look at that resolution and to, if they wish to make changes, you are free to do so. We wanted to let you know that it had gone through this vetting process. It has had that approval by the resolutions committee, and I think it's been out for public comment now for some time. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Roger. So my name is Jeff Silvestrini. I've had the honor to serve as the first vice president of the League this year, and one of the duties of the first vice is to chair the Legislative Policy Committee. And first of all, I want to thank all of the members of the League that have participated in LPC during the course of the year. That's the body that gives the League and the board direction with respect to major policy issues. So thank you for that. And as Roger mentioned, one of the products of the work of the LPC is to come up with a resolution this year for your consideration that relates to short-term rentals. Why are we concerned about short-term rentals in our state? Well, I'd like to share with you, first of all, an email from one of my constituents, whose name was Tina. Mayor Silvestrini, I am very unhappy that Mill Creek allows nearly anything to be okay in my area. My neighbor is operating a small hotel serving 16 people next door. We've lived here for years in a quiet circle that becomes a disaster for snow removal and noise. There is nothing we can do but wait and call the police anytime there are too many cars or noise. Every time. Quality of life for taxpayers? What is your thought about allowing this? I hate the police being the only answer the city leaves us. And basically, she says, this is unbelievable. So short-term rentals are not only problematic with respect to our ability to regulate them under current state law, because they create issues with respect to crowding, traffic, noise in our communities. But they also have an impact on affordable housing in many of our communities. And as Mayor Ramsey and I have traveled around the state, we heard from communities where they've said that as soon as a house gets built, it's operated as a short-term rental so that our kids and grandkids can't afford to buy it. And so there needs to be a balance here. Clearly, short-term rentals have value. I like to stay in them when I travel, but they also do present issues with respect to our attempts to accommodate the growth in our community, from large communities down to the very, very smallest communities in our state and tourist communities, because they interfere with our ability to provide workforce housing and other affordable housing. The resolution that we're going to present to you today for your consideration gives the league direction to approach and negotiate with the legislature for some changes. It's relatively general, but we are hoping that we can improve the abilities of municipalities to enforce short-term rental ordinances, to collect tax revenue from that, because they do create burdens that require us to spend resources on extra policing and code enforcement issues, and also to figure a strategy so that we are not eating up all of our affordable housing with them. The Kem Gardner Policy Institute has conducted research on this issue and has basically collected data that shows that this is an issue that we need to consider in our community. So the resolution that we are putting in front of you has been out there in Friday fax emails for weeks, and it's on an attachment on the CVent app. And it is also on the email summarizing this conference every day. And I'm happy to, well, let me say this, I'm not happy to read it, but without objection, I won't read it so that we can consider it. So I'm not seeing an objection to reading it. If that's the case, then basically I think that you can review it. The resolution just basically empowers the league and our officers and our staff to engage with the legislature to talk about this issue and give us some better enforcement authority and better ability to collect short-term or transient room tax on these rentals, and to find a balance on this that will preserve affordable housing. So with that, I will look for a motion to approve Resolution 22-001 on short-term rentals. Okay, I can see Councilmember Jackson from Mill Creek either moving or seconding. I didn't see who else moved.
I'll move.
All right. Is there any discussion on this motion to approve this resolution? Seeing none, then we'll call a question. All those in favor of the resolution, please raise your cards to signify a yay vote. Okay, and are there any opposed? I know what Mayor Ramsey's been talking about the entire time of this convention, but I'm not seeing any cards raised.
We have one opposed?
Oh, we have one opposed? Oh, okay. All right, then without objection, the chair's prerogative, the motion carries, and I thank you very much.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for not making us count any of that. We appreciate not having to get up and count, particularly this early in the morning. So my name is Justin Lee, Director of Government Relations. For those of you who don't know, I know, again, with the bow tie, it's confusing. I might be John Park, but I'm not. Just wearing it in his honor. So it's time to talk a little bit about legislative preview, what's coming up. But before we get to that, there's some news. But first, the news. We already talked about a lot of programs. There's a few more programs, a couple other things that I want to put on your radar. First one is an audit, which I know everyone is going to be really excited about. That's our favorite thing. The Legislative Auditor General has been tasked with doing an audit about cybersecurity. Now, this is a very broad audit. This isn't directed just at local government, just at cities and towns. This is looking at the legislative branch, the executive branch, judicial branch, and local and interlocal entities. They're doing a very broad-based look at what our cybersecurity looks like in the state. They will be doing some vulnerability assessments that are randomly select. Well, then they will randomly select some other cities, some other entities that they may reach out to. So if you're really lucky and you get reached out to by the Legislative Auditor General, just want you to know what that's about. It's not directly looking at cities, it's looking at what does our cybersecurity posture look like in the state in general. There will be some emails coming out about that in the next couple of weeks, but just wanted to put that on your radar before we got there. If you're not in Salt Lake County, you can totally just zone out for the next minute and a half. I apologize for that. But Salt Lake County took some of their ARPA grants and has created a grant dealing with meaningful water conservation projects. So this is available only to municipalities in Salt Lake County. But you can see there's certain criteria: further adoption of meaningful water conservation goals, plans and initiatives, implementation of water-efficient landscaping and ordinances, lawn conversion projects. There will be an email coming out next week that will give you more information about what that grant looks like. We'll just be sending that out to Salt Lake County. So I apologize that that's an area-specific thing, but for those people in Salt Lake County, this is a good chance to get some funding to help with water conservation projects. On that note, with your materials that you got when you checked in, you probably saw a flyer or may have seen a flyer about the H2O Collective. This is part of the conversations we've been having. This is with Prep 60, which is the 4 largest water conservation districts, an initiative with us working with Prep 60 and the League, trying to get information out there about water. Many of you are familiar with LUA website and a lot of the land use and the training and the information out there. We're working on getting more information out there, best practices dealing with water conservation, and so that's what that's about. More information coming on that and on the website, but things moving forward on water. So that was some news. Back to legislative issues. 102 days until the legislative session starts. When I made these slides, it was 104 days, and for Phineas and Ferb fans, that would have been a cool song, but didn't have that, so it's 102 days. Session runs January 17th to March 3rd. There are 636 bill files already open and requested by legislators. I'm not making that up, 636 as of a couple of days. I just heard Mike say none of those are his, Mike Winder. Congratulations on that. 203 in the Senate, 433 in the House. There are a couple of senators. One of them has, I think, 27 bill files open. One of them have 28. I already ran into them and gave them a hard time about that. Asked them if they just wake up in the middle of the night and open bill files. And they said yes, basically. If I have an idea, I just open a bill file. And then I just want to remind everybody about how many bills have been passed the last few years. 2018, we had 533 bills passed. That's 533 ways that our state, I'm sure, is a better place to live. But there's a lot of legislation coming, there's a lot of discussions coming, and there are a lot of issues that we, as always, will need your feedback on. I'm not going to spend a whole ton of time talking about all the issues that are coming up. We've had a lot of discussions about those. I just really wanted to make a slide deck to freak everybody out about how many issues there are coming up. Airport zoning, grandma water, housing, noticing, elections, and if we're really, really lucky this year, feral cats will come back. For anybody who remembers the feral cat bill, that Twitter account is still active, and in fact tweeted out just about a month and a half ago, so Snowball is still out there. If you are not aware of the feral cat bill, just go Google it. It was entertaining one session, or not. We want to talk legislative strategy for just a second here. So I've got my friend the Count. I brought him back because you may not know this, but the Count is not only really good at counting things, he's also just a stats and math wizard in general. So we're going to talk about stats for just 1 second. I've got a coin here, which of course I dropped immediately because that's what I was afraid I was going to do. I have a coin here. It's a coin from Layton, so even though we got your name wrong behind us, I got a coin that has your name right. So thank you, Mayor Petro, for that. When I flip this coin, what is the likelihood that it comes up heads or tails? What's the stats on that? What's the percentage chance that it's heads or tails? It's 50-50, right? Okay, someone said it's 100%, and that is actually correct. It is a 100% chance it will come up heads or tails. So thank you for that. Someone's so smart. But 50% it comes up heads, 50% it comes up tails. If I flip it again, does that change? 50-50, right? Heads or tails. What happens if I flip it again? Have the stats changed? No, it is still 50-50 every time. And the reason is the coin doesn't have any memory, and the coin does not care who is flipping it. Okay? It's always going to be 50-50. When we're talking about legislators do have memory, and they do care who's flipping their votes. So when we talk about a lot of things, when we're talking about legislative strategy, we have a lot of policy discussions, and we want to talk about them as if it's a science. We talk about them as if we know what's going to happen. We're going to just get up and have these policy discussions, and I know we know this doesn't really happen, but we think maybe really good policy will just win the day, regardless of other factors. But that's policy. Really, there's a lot of politics involved, and that's more art. And there are a lot of other things that we need to talk about. So what I want to talk about for just a couple of minutes is not just the policies that we're going to be dealing with, but talk about some of the art behind how we need to talk with legislators about bills that are coming up. Because we ask you all the time, you need to be talking to your legislators. We need to be talking to your legislators. We say that just over and over and over. And some of the things that we talk about there is we need to talk to legislators, and we then give some really high-level kind of utopian hope answers that then maybe you might be the first call or the first text when they're considering legislation. Or maybe then when you talk to your legislators and you get to know them, they'll listen to you every time you call. But we know that's not what really happens. We know that they don't always listen because, again, we're dealing with personality. So a couple of caveats before we move forward. One, if anybody texts a legislator and tells them that I compared them to a Muppet, one, that's probably okay. Just don't tell them which specific one, because I'm not naming names here. Two, even though there's going to be some fuzzy caring Muppets here on the screen, this is a serious thing. We need to think about how we deal with people. It's not just fuzzy and fun, and not just because I was bored when I was making my slide deck. I could have put lots of different characters up here. So with that, let's talk about Cookie Monster. If Cookie Monster is your representative, we know how he's going to vote on cookie issues. He is all in on cookie issues all the time. Vegetable issues, we have to work a little bit harder. We can probably get him there. Over the years, he's gotten a little bit better about vegetables, but we need to work him a little bit on those. But cookie issues, we know where we're at. One of the realities is if Cookie Monster is running a cookie issue and we don't love it, but he's also maybe the key vote on a vegetable issue that we really, really need, we might have to deal with a slightly not great cookie bill in order to get the really, really good vegetable bill. That's some of the political reality when we're dealing with that stuff. But Cookie Monster's pretty straightforward. We know where he's at. Oscar doesn't even want to talk to you. I'm sorry if he's your rep. Oscar, you text him and he just says scram, slams the door and goes away. Now we know he's big on landfill issues, but he's just kind of a grump. So strategically, we may just not spend a whole lot of time on Oscar. There's some other people. We got Bert. Bert's pretty happy in this picture. It's a good headshot day. But Bert can be pretty grumpy too. However, Bert is one of the kinds of guys that if you talk to him, if you explain the issues, you may be able to get him there. But he's going to take a little bit more time. Now, the trick really with Bert, though, is that you got to know his best friend, Ernie. Now, if we can get Ernie, we're going to get Bert. And these are the things we need you to know. We need you to know when you're talking to legislators, who are friends? Who do they know? Who do they like on your council and who do they maybe not like on your council? Who is the best person to go talk to them? So when we say things like, please go talk to your legislator, if they hate you, please don't. But if the council member next to you really does have a good relationship with them, maybe that's the right way to go. Now you've got Elmo. Elmo talks on every single bill. He probably has a political podcast and tweets a lot. But we can talk to Elmo, okay? Elmo's someone we can deal with. Abby Kadabi here, newer legislator, hasn't been around a whole long time, really big on wand issues. I mean, she's open carrying a wand in this picture. You know where she's at, okay? These are the things we need to know. As you get to know your legislators, it's not just about getting to know them, it's about learning what they care about and things that we can take. So if we have wand issues and a wand bill, we need to talk to Abby Kadabi. The other thing is, even though she's only been there for a few short years, she is the expert on wands in the legislature. It's important that we know who our experts are on certain things. If we need to talk to somebody about RDA, we need to go talk to Wayne Harper. He's our guy. I know he's not a Muppet, but we need to go talk to Wayne Harper about it. If we're going to talk about water, we would have talked to Tim Hawks, but he's leaving us. We would have talked to Joel Ferry, and we'll still talk to him, but just in a different capacity. Some people have expertise, and when we know who those people are, that helps us out. So as you're going to go get to know your legislators, again, it's not just about convincing them, it's about information gathering. There are some newer ones. We got Rosita here. Rosita's pretty new. She came in on a vacancy. She hasn't run for election yet. We don't know where she's at on a whole lot of things yet, but she seems pretty friendly. And fun fact, she used to be a city council member. So that helps us out, and that's an in. I only have a couple more. So Ernie's back again because he's got an intern. And Ernie's intern is good in. If you know the interns during the legislative session, that's also very helpful. But guess what? If you already know Ernie, we don't have to go through the intern. That will be even faster for us. And then finally, we have a whole cast of characters here, and I don't know any of their names because they just got elected. They're brand new to our Sesame Street legislature. But as a reminder, ballots are going out in about a week. We're going to have a whole host of new legislators coming into the legislative session. We don't know them yet. You might know some of them. So just one more ask that as people are running for office, I say this a lot, but I'm going to say it again. As you know, when you're running for office, you want to talk to people. That's a time you want to talk to people. I know you still want to when you're in office, but not quite as urgently sometimes. This is the time to go get some of these new legislators. Go find out who they are. Go find out where they're at on some of these issues so that when we get to the legislative session, it's not just about reaching out to people to get them to flip votes one way or another, but it's also helping us know who we're dealing with so that we can have that strategy. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to who I've been informed is my favorite colleague, Rachel Terry, to talk about a couple more things.
Good morning, and thank you for being here at the convention. Thank you for being here on a Friday morning, starting at 8:30 a.m. We all had to be here before my kids even had to go to school. We have really enjoyed having you. We appreciate your continued support. I've really enjoyed interacting with you in the workshops and in the hallway. Thank you for coming and talking to me. I love engaging with you, learning about your communities, learning about what challenges you have, what your needs are, what's going well in your cities, and what you need from us to help it continue to go well. Over the course of this convention, if we had a drinking game where you had to take a shot of Diet Coke every time someone said growth or fastest growing state in the nation, we would all be super buzzed on caffeine and aspartame. So naturally, what I'm going to talk about for 2 seconds is growth. One of our core values at the League is collaboration, working with state and local and private partners to be able to provide to you as our city leaders what you need to succeed. I'm going to highlight 3 of the projects that we're working on right now that we hope will be a tremendous asset to you in your cities. The first is guiding our growth, a statewide conversation about Utah's future. The legislature, okay, so I've said growth twice now. I hope you all have your Diet Cokes. The legislature set aside money to start a statewide conversation about growth. And this effort is being spearheaded by the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget. We are partnering with them on that project, along with Wasatch Front Regional Council, the Utah Land Use Institute, Envision Utah, the Utah Association of Counties, and probably someone that I'm forgetting. But this is an initiative to engage with you, our grass tops, and with your residents, our grassroots. The point of the initiative is to support you and learn what we need to know to help you in your efforts, whether you're a rapidly growing city or a city that's not growing at all. This is a conversation so that we can all go from the same baseline of facts. There will be two parts to this. One, where we engage with residents. There will be open houses, online, surveys that will be led primarily by Envision Utah to not only educate your residents, but also to hear from them. This is supposed to be a true conversation where they tell us, this is what I'm worried about. This is what I want to maintain in my community. This is what's important to me. Then there's also the engagement with you as our leaders, our grass tops, and that will be through a series of workshops. We've already had one in Weber, Davis, and Tooele counties. There will soon be workshops in Utah, Salt Lake counties, as well as the Wasatch Back. Those will be happening over the next few months. We hope you'll come. We hope you'll engage. We hope that you'll tell us, like, this was helpful, this wasn't helpful. That helps us to know how to better engage with you on, wait for it, growth. Okay, so the next project that I want to talk to you about is one that I'm particularly excited about. It's not that one. Okay, it's not the I wish it were the Muppets. Okay. It's fine. I know how to use clickers. Your land, your plan. So yes, if you were here for the general session yesterday, you got to hear from Zions Bank and Intermountain Healthcare about your land, your plan. You may or may not realize it, but you as cities, you're landowners. You own lots of land. You probably even own land you don't realize you own. Hopefully someone in your city knows that you own it, but you may not be utilizing it to its full potential. So what this initiative is Zions Bank and Intermountain Healthcare has provided us with funding so that we can provide a robust educational opportunity and platform for you to learn how to better utilize the assets you already own. And not only better utilize what you own, but also how to partner with the property owners within your city to make something even better. Maybe you have a parcel next to an IHC parcel that would work great to connect some trails. Maybe you put housing on that parcel, and you not only put housing on that parcel, but you don't just sell it. You put housing on it and you lease it so there is ongoing revenue source for your city. There are things you can be doing that will provide for healthier communities and a more fiscally stable community. That is what we're trying to do. Our first session is January 9th. Please go online to our website and sign up for that. We'll be sending out more details. We want you to really come to this and be excited to learn. Some of our partners are Urban 3 and Chuck Marone. Chuck Marone was the keynote yesterday. And I mean, between Urban 3 and Joe Minicozy and Chuck Marone, they're like, I guess, like the rock stars of land use planning, if that were a thing. And the final thing I want to tell you about is shared local administrator program. So the majority of the cities and towns in our state do not have city administrators. And yet they have the same obligations, the same challenges that our larger cities have, but they don't have the resources to address them in the same way. So we've been working and collaborating with our partners, the associations of governments, with the governor's office, with the Utah City Managers Association, to try to find solutions to give our smaller cities and towns more resources. So what this program would look like is there would be some anchor administrators at the league, and then we will hopefully be able to place city administrators within each of the AOGs to help our cities that do not already have administrators to be able to do some of the things that they need done. Whether it's planning, whether it's budgeting, whether it's just how do we go from here with this project to this place? How do we find grants? How do we create the sort of economic and other opportunities that we want to have in our cities? This is something that the governor has expressed support. This came through the Utah UEOC, Economic Opportunity Commission. There are so many acronyms in this space. If you are a newly elected, let's talk. AOG, COG, blah, 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 RTZs, TRZs, TNTs, RIFs. It is ridiculous, and so if you need help with that, please reach out to us. We can talk acronyms. So we hope that this is a helpful opportunity to those who need the support. We would ask you to let your legislator know that this is coming, that you support having this program available. We're asking the legislature to fund this request during the next legislative session. So get excited. There'll be continued collaboration, and we hope we get to collaborate with you moving forward. We love working with you. We appreciate you being here. And now I'll turn the time over to Cam.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you again for joining us here at the annual convention. The first thing I just want to do is say thank you to the league staff. You can see from Justin and Rachel and Molly and Carson and Roger and John and Liam and Nick and Angela and Katie and Susan and Meg and John Oliver and John Park and everyone else, Todd Godfrey. I mean, the list goes on of the great team that we have here at the League of Cities and Towns that wake up every day excited to serve you, to help you in turn serve your community. So can we just give a round of applause to the team for the great work this week. I'm proud to be a part of their team, and I'm humbled to be the director of the league. I've now been the director of the Utah League of Cities and Towns now for almost 5 years, even though I started the league back in 2006. I ask this question every year when I do the State of the League, and every year there are fewer and fewer hands. But how many people remember when I started the league in 2006? Yeah, actually there's still quite a few. Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. Because I don't feel old enough to be the institutional knowledge, and yet every year there's less and less institutional knowledge. A couple days ago, when the governor was here, he spoke about the state flag. And he talked about how the state flag is a symbol for the state, and then he referenced about Utah and BYU shirts at Disneyland and the like. Well, when I think about the state symbol, this is something we actually talked about back in April. I think about the Jazz, right? Utah fans, BYU fans, right? He didn't bring that up. I was flabbergasted he didn't bring it up because he always talks about it on Twitter. But the Jazz usually unite us. I say usually because when I was on this stage back in the spring, little did I know that in the upcoming months, after I made some bold predictions about the Jazz and we talked about Jazz jerseys, that Snyder would be gone, they'd trade Rudy, they'd trade Donovan, and then they would pick that. And I'm not talking about Jordan Clarkson. I mean, he's probably the only guy I still recognize on the team. But they picked that jersey, and that's from somebody who has the Jazz owner has a background in survey work and gathering public opinion. But that, that's what they picked. I think, can we all agree in this room that we've seen junior Jazz jerseys that are better than that? Like, for example, that. Clint, I saw you walk in. Clint, where are you? There you are, Clint. Do you know who those two guys are? I thought if anybody in the room would know it, either be you or Roger. But Clint from the Layton City Council. It's Flying Brian Russell and Blue Edwards. And actually that very day, I got dunked on by Blue Edwards. I'm actually quite proud of that, but he asked if anybody was willing to play defense against him. I said I was. He Yeah, he juked me one way and dunked on me the other. It was good preparation for life in politics. But I think we can all agree that we love junior Jazz jerseys. We're not so sold on the new Jazz logos. But the reason I bring it up is when we think about the state flag and the effort underway over the last few months, I applaud state leaders for their efforts to gather feedback from the public and talk about the symbolism and seek a flag that will bring us together. Because in many ways, what they've been doing through the course of the state flag process is what you do every day at City Hall. You listen to residents, you plan your communities, you're thinking long-term about how to unite your communities. So in many ways, what they're doing at the state flag is what you do every day. And I just want to thank you for that work that you do. I don't think there's ever been a tougher time to be an elected official. I've always admired Teddy Roosevelt, and I've always appreciated this quote. I'm not going to read the whole quote, but it's the man or woman in the arena. And in this quote, he has pretty harsh words for those who are armchair quarterbacks. He has pretty harsh words for those who are critics. And really, as I read this quote, he's talking about you, because you're the ones who are responding to emails at midnight. You're the ones who are in council meetings until 11:59, and then you start responding to emails. You're the ones who are listening to neighbors. You're the ones who are trying to think about what your decisions today mean for your community's future. And you're the ones who embrace the opportunity to serve even when it's difficult. And so you're the ones who are actually in the arena, and we as a team here at the Utah League of Cities and Towns salute you. What's crazy about this quote, as I was rereading it preparing for the conference, is he gave this speech in Paris in 1910. For those of you who may not know when the internet was actually created, 1910 was well before the internet, it was well before social media, it was well before trolls, and yet the statement he was making then is even more true today in 2022. So thank you for your dedication, for your community service. It is worth it. Utah's the best place to live in the country because of you and because of your efforts. So remember that next week when you're in council meeting and you're getting yelled at by residents and you're grappling with really difficult decisions, remember that it's because of your service that Utah is such a wonderful place to live. Now, it's been referenced a few times over the last few days about just the rancor in politics, and also the fact that the league has a seat at the table for a lot of big policy discussions. This was a wonderful event. It was the first time it's ever happened. Many of you were there, or your mayors were there. We had over 100 mayors at the governor's mansion last month. But I want to tell you how actually I started the month of August. So this is how we ended it. But I started the month of August meeting with state league directors from around the country. We do that every year. We share best practices. We learn from each other. And during that conversation, one of my fellow state league directors asked how many leagues cannot get an audience with their governors. How many of your governors essentially view cities as obstacles and won't even meet? And what was staggering to me is that over a third of the hands went up. I looked around, frankly shocked. In fact, I texted a couple of friends from the governor's office and said, I just want you to know what's happening in state houses around the country. And then I raised my hand and I told the other state league directors, not only does the governor actually talk to us, he's coming to our convention next month. We meet regularly with his staff. Our officers meet regularly with him. And he's hosting 100 mayors at the mansion later this month. And then it was their turn to be shocked, because that sort of collaboration and that sort of unity and that sort of joint purpose is rare nowadays in politics. And we still have it here. And let's make sure we keep it. And that's imperative on all of us to, even when we disagree on items, that we're not disagreeable, and that we work together for those common goals. And I can assure you, and I'll talk about this actually in a few minutes, there are times we disagree with the governor. There are times we disagree with House and Senate leadership. But we're all working toward shared goals and shared objectives, and that is in part what makes Utah special. So why do we do what we do for you? Well, really it's simple. We do what we do so you can do what you do. We advocate for you at the Capitol. We give you opportunities to engage with each other, and then we make sure that the proverbial trains run on time within our operations. And our board of directors, which consists of mayors and council members from across the state, has given us some strategic goals and organizational goals that we strive to meet. So part of my objective every year in this meeting is to report back to you. make sure you're aware of what we're doing so that you are confident in your membership within the league. So there are really three categories: advocacy, engagement, and operations. I'll actually start at the bottom one on the operations, because we have striven to be accountable in how we handle our finances, because you provide the majority of the support that funds the League of Cities and Towns. Our COO, Chief Operating Officer Nick Jarvis, put this together, and we were proud that in the last couple of years we've been able to find efficiencies in our operations, while at the same time we've been able to reinvest dollars to expand our staff bandwidth. And I really want to thank the current board of directors for your investment within league staff. It has made a noticeable difference in our bandwidth at the Capitol and our bandwidth to do events like this and to meet our engagement goals. We're updating our budget process based on feedback from the board. And this year in 2022, we've seen record attendance both at this conference and at the spring conference. So thank you to those of you in this room and those who will be watching later for your engagement within the league. Critically, thank you also to our corporate partners and our sponsors who help underwrite the costs of these conventions. And we actually set a record this year for the amount of sponsor revenue that we've ever had before, and kudos to my team for building those partnerships. And here's to the sponsors. Yes, thank you, Mayor. Now, on the advocacy and on the engagement side, when Justin told me that there were already 600 bill files open and it's only October, that ruined my day. Because those numbers continue to grow. And it is frustrating. It is frustrating because inevitably a good chunk of those bills are going to impact local government. In fact, last year we worked on about 200 bills, and over the course of my time since 2006, we have seen a growth in bills that we work on annually. In fact, when I started in 2006, we averaged about 100 bills that we were tracking each year that impacted local government. Now that number has doubled. What this slide shows, and it's elementary because I built it, but the staff of the State House of Representatives in 2010 versus 2022, and you can see that in their case it's more than doubled. Our staff hasn't more than doubled, but we have in recent years been able to expand our bandwidth and expand our staff, and again, thank you to the board for those investments. And then we rely a lot on you. We rely on your city attorneys and your city managers. We rely heavily on our officers and the board of directors and on mayors and council members across the state to help bolster our efforts and to elevate the voices of cities at the Capitol. So thank you. And you'll notice on that previous slide when I talked about, actually 2 slides ago, we talked about engagement. This past year was the first time that we set some strategic goals around that piece, about how do we make sure that we're engaging the membership at the highest possible level in advocacy, but also engaging the membership on conferences and trainings and ensuring that they have good return on investment. We'll be sending a survey later today in Friday Facts and through the app to get feedback about the conference. Give us that feedback. When we got the feedback from the spring, our team went through it to analyze which areas we could improve and what sort of programming we needed to do. And in fact, in part because of that feedback, we've now created our Lunch with the League webinar series so that we can offer more programming through the year via those webinars and get you more resources regardless of the size of your community. On that advocacy side, you've heard a lot this week about the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission. In fact, Rachel was just up here, and I'm thrilled to have Rachel as our deputy director. She was talking about the shared city administrator. We ran that through the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission, and the governor loved it and spoke highly of it in the meeting. In fact, Mayor Ramsey, that was one of the nice parts of the meeting, right? But that was an idea that came from a mayor of a town, less than 1,000 people, who called me and said, "We have all these challenges. What can you do to help?" That conversation then spurred conversations with several associations of government, with the City Managers Association and others, to where now we've put together this shared city administrator proposal, and we've brought it forward to the UEOC, and we hope we'll be able to get it funded this upcoming legislative session. Another idea that came from you, within the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission, there's been a lot of discussion around transportation infrastructure funding. And we heard from members, particularly in small communities, who said we can't hit the local match requirements that are on us in order to qualify for state transportation projects. So with our partners at WFRC, the Wasatch Rut Regional Council, and others, we've had discussions within the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission about more flexibility for how you get those matching dollars. Those are the types of things that don't necessarily make headlines, but it's the sort of advocacy we're doing behind the scenes all the time for cities of all shapes and sizes. Now, we work on 200 some odd bills. We do not get involved in specific appropriations. So we do not go say, legislature, please fund Cameron City for this particular project. But where we do get involved is when there are general appropriations that benefit cities according to our board's direction, or to provide tools and resources directly to you to meet the needs of your constituents. So I'm just going to take a second to talk through some of that return on your investment that you are seeing in your city budgets. So for example, secondary water metering, when that conversation started, there were 0 state dollars attached to it. By the end, thanks in large part to Justin Lee's efforts, there were $250 million of state dollars available to help cities. It doesn't cover the whole cost, but it helps cities meet that mandate. House Bill 362 several years ago, how many of you were in your current positions in 2015? Not very many. Back in 2015, before many of you may have even been elected, we spent several years working toward a bill that authorized a new sales tax for transportation and dedicated 0.10 of that to cities directly. Likewise, it also modified the motor fuel tax and indexed it for future growth. Every city and town in the state, regardless of size, saw a benefit from that bill and continues to see a benefit from that bill. In fact, you can see that in the amount of money that's gone to cities to date since the passage of that bill, cumulatively is more than $400 million that cities and towns have for transportation infrastructure. And that number will continue to grow year after year. I mentioned it on stage yesterday, but when the legislature got their ARPA dollars, we partnered with them to secure matching grants for cities and towns, and we also partnered with them on the CARES Act, where cities and towns under congressional decree received exactly $0 statutorily from the CARES Act. But because of the partnerships that you had built with your county leaders and that we had collectively built with state leaders, over $200 million of those CARES Act dollars ended up in City Hall. Technical assistance, the statewide conversation on growth that Rachel referenced, homelessness mitigation funding for the first time last year, and Wayne Niederhauser was here yesterday talking about his vision as state homeless coordinator. He has been a tremendous advocate in that space and a tremendous partner as we try to address the challenges around homelessness. But for the first time, we now have dedicated state money that's helping the cities that house homeless resource centers. And every city and town contributes financially to help those cities. That's the good news. The bad news is it's still not enough. And the need is still very high, and that's why we're continuing the conversation with Wayne Niederhauser and trying to focus on long-term solutions. None of these policy questions we've talked about the last few days are easy to answer. If they were, they would have been answered by now. But the fact is, you all have a seat at the table through the league, and we want to elevate your voice. So similar to that mayor who called me and said, what can you do to help us on the shared city, what can you do to help us on the administration side? And then that's resulted in this idea on the shared city administrator program. If you have ideas in the advocacy space, if you have ideas on programming or webinars you'd like to see or trainings you'd like to see through the league, let us know and we'll figure out a way to meet you where you are, elevate your voice, and engage you within the league. Back to the drinking game, Rachel. When we talk about growth and we talk about the fastest growing state in the country, we as a staff, we're trying to rethink that over the last couple of weeks. So this is one of the many charts that you'll see from the Kempsey C. Gardner Policy Institute of Utah's growth, but it breaks down to about 55,000 new residents a year. Taylorsville, even with the lights, I can see you there. That's basically a new Taylorsville every year. I love Taylorsville. Taylorsville is great. I grew up in Murray, across the river from Taylorsville. Imagine adding a new Taylorsville every year. So we thought, well, what does that actually look like at City Hall? Well, what it looks like at City Hall for an average city the size of Taylorsville is 161 new miles of roads that cities have to pave and maintain, and the 15 snowplows that come with it. It's police vehicles and fire engines and over 100 combined firefighters and police officers. 9 million gallons of water used a day and 3 million gallons of sewage treated daily. when we talk about growth, it's not just about housing and jobs. It's about the services and the infrastructure that we have to, as cities, provide in perpetuity. Well, then this led us to the question, do legislators know what growth really means at City Hall? Which then led to an even more foundational question. Do legislators know what you do at City Hall, period? And that's one of the challenges that we have for you walking out of here today. We need you to have those conversations with legislators and just start there. What do you do at City Hall? How does it impact the quality of life of your residents? And how do you provide that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? So here are the 3 quick, easy things that we're asking of you. This is your homework after this conference. One is to use us. Give us feedback, engage with us, and if you want to have a meeting with your legislator and you don't know where to start, give us a call. So I'll give you an example from just last week. We had 5 cities in southern Utah County who got together and did a Zoom call with Representative Stephen White, who is the co-chair of the Commission on Housing Affordability. So you heard from Senator Fillmore yesterday. He's the other co-chair. Representative White met with Orem, Provo, Mapleton, Springville, and Spanish Fork, and then my team and I were on the call as well. We spent over an hour talking about how those cities were planning for growth, and the representative said, really? I didn't know this. This is terrific information. Are other cities doing this too? The answer is yes. But the legislators don't know unless we tell them, right? We have to tell them. So that gets to number 2. Tell your city's story. And it's not just about growth. Tell your city story, period. Tell them about the infrastructure challenges you have. Tell them about the needs that you have for certain funding. Tell them about challenges in public safety. But make sure they understand what's happening at City Hall. And then the last thing, and this gets back to Sesame Street from earlier, I'm probably one of the few people who did recognize every Muppet from Sesame Street because I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. But if you've got the new Muppets from Sesame Street, if you have new legislators, now is the time to start building those relationships. So when you get to the session, they already know who you are. They'll already take your phone call. And when good bills come up or bad bills come up, you're ready. Another easy example, and I want to thank Layton City and Mayor Petro, because Mayor Petro hosted a meeting with Speaker of the House, Brad Wilson. It was supposed to be an hour. We were there for over 2 hours talking about housing and water, and we had all the mayors of Davis County, as well as Mayor Ramsey and Mayor Silvestrini, who joined us for that event. We are willing to be a resource for you and to help you as you engage with those legislators, because at the end of the day, the strength of the league is the membership, and you are that membership, you are that strength. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for your service to our communities. There's our contact information, including my personal cell. So please reach out at any time. Those are our executive team members, and then some key upcoming dates. But you truly are the strength of the league. Thank you for the service that you provide to the league and the service you provide to our communities. And there's really nobody in my mind this past year who better embodies that than Mayor Dawn Ramsey. And so as I wrap up, I want to thank Mayor Ramsey for her service. And you're going to see some photos pop up here in a moment. But I've had the great privilege over the last year, as she served as president, to accompany her around the state, to spend many hours at the Capitol together. In fact, some of my favorite texts from Mayor Ramsey usually start with, I've got a gap of time to talk at 10:30 p.m. Great, let's touch base at 10:30 p.m. She wears many hats. League president, obviously. Mayor of South Jordan, obviously. But also mom, grandma, BYU student. I'm wearing my Utah tie, but yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. But BYU student, school advocate, city champion, even with as triple booked as her schedule always is. She was always there for her, even this year with all of the obligations she had. She was always there for cross-country meets for kids. She was there for all of her city responsibilities, all of her league duties. I appreciated her desire to meet with as many of you as possible over the course of the last year, and we crisscrossed the state together. And probably my favorite moment actually from all of that was we had a meeting fall through. We were down in Garfield County. We looked at the clock. We said, well, I think we have enough time. Do you think we have enough time? Yeah, we got enough time. So we skipped lunch. The lunch fell through, so we skipped lunch. We drove to Bryce Canyon, spent 10 minutes enjoying the view. We were there dressed up in our business clothes. None of the other tourists were. They thought we were kind of strange. We popped out. We looked at the amphitheater, took some pictures, jumped in the car, ran back to the next meeting. But I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know her and her family better over the last year. Another thing you may not know is that Mayor Ramsey has a grandbaby in California, so we've had multiple conversations late at night as you're driving across Nevada to go see the grandbaby. In fact, that's why I think Diet Coke was created, not necessarily for the drinking game, but for late night drives across Nevada. But I think it's also important to know that Mayor Ramsey was able to spend Local Officials Day with her kids, which was awesome, while also advocating for us, and she's willing to say what needs to be said. Another one of my favorite moments was when we were having a pretty heated discussion with the governor's staff, and the mayor expressed her disappointment in the governor's position on a bill. That next day, the governor was on the phone with us explaining his position because he had heard that Mayor Ramsey and the league were disappointed on the position. She's also spoken truth to power in other ways. In fact, there are times at the UEOC where she's been the only no vote because she knows that cities were opposed to something, and so even though the governor, the speaker, the Senate president, others all voted yes, she voted no so that we could keep the dialogue going and get ourselves to a better place on it. The last thing I want to say about Mayor Ramsey is this. Mayor Ramsey treats everyone with respect, treats everyone with kindness. She's been a mentor to me. She's been a mentor to many of you. I've been there with her when she's taken phone calls to help mayors and elected officials through sticky situations. She's taken great interest in my family, which I appreciate. And she and I were in Washington, D.C. in the spring for the National League of Cities. And as we were going from point A to point B, she remarked to me how it was just this incredible experience to know that not that long ago, she was a member of the PTA, and now she was the president of the Utah League of Cities and Towns. And she said, it's such an honor, and I want to make sure I take full advantage of this opportunity. Well, Mayor Ramsey, I can say mission accomplished. You took full advantage of the opportunity, and truly the honor has been ours to have you serve as our president. So with that, thank you, Mayor Don Ramsey. Because of people like Mayor Ramsey, because of people like Mayor Silvestrini, who I'm excited to have serve as president and who has already dedicated considerable time and effort on behalf of the league, and thank you for the time to date, and thank you for the time to come, and Leslie, thanks in advance for sharing him with us over the next year. Thanks to Mayor Kafusi, Mayor Caldwell, the league board, all of you in this room. I am proud to stand up here and say, because of you, the state of the league is strong. So thank you very much.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage ULCT Second Vice Chair, Provo City Mayor, Michelle Kafusi. Stand by, camera one.
Good morning, everybody. That title of Second Vice Chair feels comfortable and cozy, but I think I'm going to lose it in about 8 minutes. My job as the second vice chair is to handle the nominations, and so right at the head of my notes, it's like transition of power. So here we go. As second vice president, I have the honor of serving as the chair of the nominations committee. Thanks to the dedicated members of the nominations committee. I think we have a slide for that. They had their work cut out for them this year, as we had about 4 times as many applicants as we had board spots available. And this is a record for the league. And it's a record we almost were shocked and didn't know what to do and went to work on how to manage it. The ULCT board is required to have mayors and council members from every region of the state, a town representative, and a large city representative. Thank you to all of you who applied. Please stay engaged. We beg you to please stay engaged within the ULCT. Participate in the LPC. Participate in policy subgroups. Suggestions for trainings or webinars are always welcome. Contact staff with ideas. We welcome all of you to our Team ULCT. Thanks also to the outgoing members of the ULCT Board of Directors. We have Garden City Mayor Mike Lenhart, Ogden Mayor Mike Caldwell, Ogden Council Member Marsha White, and Salt Lake City Mayor Aaron Mendenhall. Let's give an applause for those outgoing board members. I would like to offer a final thank you to Mayor Dawn Ramsey as well. She is just perfectly seated. Look at you, you're angled perfect. It's like, well, it's just gonna make us emotional, because if you were hidden, we wouldn't fill the tag, but now we're filling the tag. When I was thinking of Mayor Dawn Ramsey, I've known her for quite a while, there were 4 words that immediately hopped out to me in my mind. She is loyal. She is inclusive. She is enthusiastic, and she is dedicated. I have loved those attributes she has, and as an elected official, I wake up every morning trying to have those attributes and trying to show that I have those attributes. She has been a great friend and a great mentor to me, so thank you. So I want to invite the current ULCT officers, and Cam, will you join me on stage to give Mayor Ramsey her farewell gift? So come on up again. You never get comfortable when you're the outgoing president. Do we have everyone from Mayor Caldwell?
No, he's out of town.
Oh, Gary Hill. Come on, Gary.
So this is our annual tribute gift to our outgoing president, and I think she's ready to run some meetings other than ours. So here you go. Mayor Ramsey, thank you again.
I probably needed one of those, raising my 5 rotten kids. And now they're still rotten, so yeah, I'll still need one. All right, let's move on then. The slide of the 2022-2023 Board of Directors. And now we're moving on to our 2023 board members. If you are just elected and beginning a new term and were elected, as I call your name, please come up and stand behind our leadership. So, Snowville, Mayor Green Wilson. I'm gonna need my glasses. This is handwritten and scribbly. Logan, Mayor Holly Daines. Clearfield, Mayor Mark Shepard. Kaysville, Mayor Tammy Tran. Bountiful Council Member Kate Bradshaw. Murray, Mayor Brett Hells. Riverton Council Member Tawny McKay. West Jordan Mayor Dirk Burton. UMCA Rep Harriman City Recorder Jackie Nostrom. Lehigh Mayor Mark Johnson. Vineyard Mayor Mayor Julie Fulmer. Mapleton Council Member Jessica Egbert. Woodland Hills Council Member Carrie Malkovich. Manti Council Member Mary Winch. Roosevelt Council Member Dustin White. Blandine Mayor Logan Monson. Cedar City Council Member Scott Phillips. And St. George Mayor Michelle Randall. And I'll just tell you, these are the best of the best. I've had the opportunity not only to sit in while they were being interviewed and on the hot seat, but also work with them for years and years, and they truly are the heart of a public servant. They're not in it for the wrong reasons. They're all in it for the right reasons, which is to make the state a better place. Okay, with that said, I will now announce Mayor Silvestrini as the next president, and me as the first VP, Draper Mayor Troy Walker as the new second VP. He's our only new guy, so come on up, Mayor Walker. and Mayor Ramsey as immediate past president, and Bountiful City Manager Gary Hill as the UCMA rep. So at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion and a second. And would you like me to read what the motion will state? Would that be helpful? Okay, the motion will state to ratify the recommendations from the Nominations Committee to elect the 2022-23 Board of Directors and Officers. So I need a motion. And, all right. Okay, so shout your name out. Okay.
Mayor Zaltansky of Sandy, and who is the second? It's Jewel Allen. Thank you, Jewel.
Okay, Jewel. Great, we have a motion on the table. Is there any discussion? I know, I am like really gonna, I know, help me look. Seeing none at this point, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye, or raise your card. Perfect. Any opposed? Perfect. Thank you, everybody. The motion carries. And at this point, his is not as big. What does that mean? This one's not a weightlifting. At this point, I will now pass this on to the new president, Mayor Jeff Silverstream of Mill Creek. Okay, we can all go sit down. Thanks, everybody. Oh, you want to stay?
You guys want to sit down? No, we want to stay. Okay.
For your backup singers.
This is a great group of people to have your back, that's for sure. So, thank you, and it's really hard to read your notes up here, but I'll stand back. So first of all, thank you to Mayor Don Ramsey for your service and your leadership. There is no finer example in our state of a league president or a mayor, and her listening, her caring, and her fighting fiercely to advance the interest of our cities, just like a mama bear, is unparalleled. And I don't know if anybody could follow in your footsteps, but I really appreciate your mentorship and everything that you've taught me. And I am very happy that you will be at my side as immediate past president and also continuing to serve on the UEOC to help advance the interests of cities and towns across our state. So thank you, Dawn. And I want to thank all of you for your trust in me to lead this terrific organization. I'm no Dawn Ramsey, and if I could do half of what she did, it'll be good. But unlike Dawn, I'm in this for the money, for the big paycheck. I'm in this to continue to do what some of my constituents think I'm doing, which is lining my basement with gold. Yeah, right. I know that none of us are in this for the money. We are all in this to serve the people in our communities, and because each of us, for one reason or another, has believed that we had something to contribute to our communities. This is a room full of doers and people who serve the people. Last night I was struck by the words of Jenny Taylor when she was presenting the Jenny and Taylor Award, and actually, yeah, sorry, I'm forgetting my notes, but anyway, she presented that award to Mayor Lori Ney of Gunnison, and I can't think of anybody that deserves that award more. Mayor Gunnison, if you're here, thank you for your public service and for what you've done for your community. It's remarkable. Jenny Taylor shared some words with us last night, and they struck me. She basically told us that this is our time to serve. This is our time to listen. And it's our time to know that not everybody who cares about things going on in our community can come to a city council meeting, but they're out there. And she said that this is our time to have the courage to act on our convictions, to do the right thing that we were elected to do. And that reminds me of a quotation that aptly describes those of us who do this work, those of us in this room. And darn it, Cam, you stole my thunder. Because I printed out Teddy Roosevelt's words, just like he showed on the screen. And I really hope that this doesn't mean that I'm already finishing Cam's sentences. But unlike him, I'm going to bore you because these words are important, and I think they are instructive to all of us, and they show the quality of people that we have in this room that serve our communities. It's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcomings, but who actually does strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who are at the worst, and who are at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. That's what the people in this room do. We stand in the arena, and I will be proud to stand in the arena to represent you in this organization and to advocate for the things that we need for our cities. It's the greatest honor, ladies and gentlemen, for me to be selected by you, my peers, to undertake this role, to lead this organization. And I hope to never disappoint you. I pledge to give you my best effort and my full attention. And I will strive to follow the example of these great leaders and those that I've worked with before in this organization, like Mike Mendenhall and Mike Caldwell. And I will listen to you, and I hope to learn from you. And I strongly encourage you to reach out to me and the other board members and league staff if you need anything from us. I'm going to work to maintain and improve the collaboration that we have had with the governor and the legislature and county leaders, to continue to advance the Utah way of collaboration to effect good policy in our state by getting to the decision table early and having the impact, teaching about unintended consequences and making the best possible public policy that we can do. And that policy should recognize the benefit of local government and that one size rarely fits all. It's my goal to approach this job with in the words of the football coach of my undergraduate university, the University of Michigan, with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. It's with this that I pledge to serve you and this organization and to be a part of the League Army. But we can't do this alone. We need you as well, as Cam mentioned, to work with your legislators to help them effect good policy for our state. I look forward to a great year, and I thank you for the honor of serving you.
Congratulations. This is the last time you have to, actually it's not. It is not the last time you have to hear from me because we have a great afternoon planned and we hope that you will stick around. We have an incredible speaker. We've got fantastic breakout sessions lined up for you next. We hope you'll come and you're not going to want to miss the speaker. Actually, someone in this room told me that she had the chance to hear him speak several years ago and said it was life-changing. It was incredible. It was something she'll never forget. And she couldn't recommend more. I really look forward to it. Thank you so much, once again, for this opportunity, for the chance to serve with you. You know, I know I keep saying I have about 3.5 minutes till I become a has-been. No, I appreciate that I have 3+ years left to serve as mayor of the city of South Jordan, that I get to serve on the executive committee and on the board next year as immediate past president for this next year, that I get another year after that to represent our organization on the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission and to serve with all of you. We have great leadership. We have a great bench. We have great leaders, and I just look forward to it. Somebody asked me, what are you going to do with all your free time? And I have a hard time thinking there's going to be any free time yet. I'm not sure whether at that point. But next year, I want you to mark my words, if with no discussion at all, Mayor Silvestrini doesn't come wearing the exact same colors as the league staff, exact same outfits, we're all matching, then be shocked, because you spend enough time with these people to just think the same. And we showed up and all went, you're kidding me, right? We're all wearing the same thing. It's a blessing to get to serve with this incredible staff and with all of you great leaders. Thank you for that. Even if Cam did wear his, we love the University of Utah. And I know why he's wearing that. I know. Anyway, with my free time this afternoon, I'm driving to Las Vegas to watch the Cougars play the Fighting Irish tomorrow for my husband and I's 30th wedding anniversary tomorrow. So that's what we're doing. But go Utes too. We love that too. But you're welcome, Cam, that in the little video that we played yesterday, I had nothing to do with the pictures that showed up today. I didn't know about that. But the video that played yesterday, I was very generous. We do have a picture that might come up sometime of Mayor Kafusi and I with Cameron, and we're all three doing this. So we'll see if that ever comes up. Anyway, thank you all so much. We hope you'll join us for our breakout sessions and come back for our closing speaker. And thank you to all of you. I need a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. It usually doesn't take long. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.